Agents and Brunos. So and I'm back, and today we're well almost done. I mean, the wheel rig's don't literally done. If I wanted to, I could extend Project Eisenhower 1 and make the rail. To do that, I want to go on, and that would be a pain in the. So instead, we're going to just do Project Eisenhower. Project Eisenhower. Anyway, we need to label these chests. Then make our elevator. Make a hell base. And then it's on. Alright, so I'm actually also gonna be reacting to everything wrong with the guns that fall apart. Also, can I say something? I'm not like a simp, but like, why do people hate on Jelly Bean? There's people that deserve hate. Yeah, she's annoying, but I guess, like, what's it called? She doesn't deserve all this hate.
And if someone can explain why it exists in the fallen universe, then please, let me know in the comments. But anyway, the minigun...
I'm labeling these chests, so I'll get onto the elevator.
Minigun uses this special ammunition, and it's the only gun in Fallout 4 that uses it, making it extremely niche. And since the minigun has a fast fire rate, it burns through all that
I never used the minigun in Fallout 4.
It should be an ammo burner, but its low damage doesn't make up for
it. It weighs too much, it does too little, the ammo just... Bruh, it's hard to find. Plus, I don't play survival mode, but if you're a survival mode player, I could bet that this ammo stacks up good. Let's see. Hold on. FO4 minigun. It does 8 damage. So at base 8 damage. Let's see. 350 divided by what? 8. I think 350 is what my damage does to the base. 43 of these shots. How fast do miniguns shoot in FO4? How fast they shoot? How fast do they shoot? Oh, I'm sorry. Fought for a minigun. I should actually fire rate. I don't know. I'm gonna assume 30. Let's see. So with my single fire automatic, single fire automatic. Yeah, burst action automatic. That's weird. With my semi-auto, I could shoot out 3 rounds per second. I can deal roughly about 1,000 damage per second. Oh, by the way, the weapon I use, that bullet can kill. Like if it's like, you know how like enemies have like the prefix, If it's like Raider, like Raider Scum, Raider Veteran, if it's just Raider or if it's just like Ghoul, it's gonna one-shot it no matter what. It's gonna do like 3 times damage. And that's what I like about that infantry, that 2-shot rifle. The Overseer's Guardian is quintuples better than the minigun. It's just, it doesn't compare. Because my Bruno silencer, yes, if that's what's called, is a Bruno silencer, I could literally just, I one-shot like probably like half the things in the entire game. I can literally take out Swan.
Interesting piece of pre-war lore. And if someone can explain why it exists in the Fallen universe, then please, let me know in the comments. But anyway, the minigun uses this special ammunition, and it's the only gun in Fallout 4 that uses it, making it extremely niche. And since the minigun has a fast fire rate, it burns through all that ammunition instantly. To be fair, it should be an ammo burner, but its low damage doesn't make up for it.
It doesn't.
In fact, there's really no positives to using this gun. It has nothing but downside.
Okay, I know I sound like an idiot when I complain this. Why do automatics do lower damage? I know why this is. I get this if it's like a battle royale, but I don't get like in Fallout. Automatic, I think the bullets should do the exact same. For example, let's say if I get hit with a Glock 9, if someone shoots me through the Glock, which usually use 9mm. Glock is a pistol. That's like 50 damage. Hey, look, an Uzi that uses the same caliber. 2 damage. Like, bruh. You're saying, logic. If I shoot this shotgun and it's automatic, it's not gonna hurt you. If it's pump, you better watch out, buddy. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Another thing I despise.
Like, in solo player RPGs.
When you
I get it.
Gun, you have to hold down the trigger and wait a second for the barrels to spin before you start shooting.
I know.
It's a common trope in lots of shooters.
But if you're gonna reduce it, don't reduce it by a ton.
Don't actually have to take a second to warm up before shooting. They fire instantly. Miniguns in real life are powered by electric motors.
Exactly.
They're also exclusively mounted weapons. They're simply too impractical to be carried by infantry. But you see,
and the recoil is too great.
Power armor was invented so that soldiers could carry these massive weapons, and miniguns like this were adapted into portable designs. Also, the giant drum magazine is an interesting choice. It only holds 500 rounds, which seems like a lot, but it runs up pretty quick. And somehow you just swap out the drum in 2 seconds to get back to firing. The reload animation on this one is especially weird, because there's not much going on that would suggest that you're actually reloading the weapon. You kind of just shake your gun, pull a giant drum out of your butt, and pop it in. You don't even need to adjust the ammo belt. It just finds its way to the chamber somehow. This is just pure laziness on Bethesda's part. They didn't even bother to give this thing a proper reload animation. And for one last point on the minigun, you can carry this thing outside of power armor like it's nothing.
Yeah, the recoil would blow you down to the ground instantly.
I do like the idea of portable heavy weapons. They're badass for sure, but
same.
The minigun's performance is pathetic and ruins my power trip fantasy. Even if it was good, all the design...
Hold on. I want to show you this video. This is an M60 machine gun. Now, hold on. 5mm versus 5. How big is a 5mm? Oh, sorry, I have to see this. Oh, so 5mm is like a very tiny round, like it looks like a 22. But even though, what's it called? This is kind of what this is an idiot right here. I'm gonna turn on the brightness so you can see. It's an M60. And that's slow fire rate too. That's not fast, that's not rapid, that's a pretty slow fire rate for an automatic gun. This minigun would blow you to the ground.
Hello, Discover Card here to explain our cashback match.
Oops.
I would say that the minigun is the most problematic weapon in the entire game. I have no choice but to award it a whopping 0 out of 5 bottle caps. Okay, That was a lot, but let's move on to another early game weapon, the double-barrel shotgun. It's a staple in the shooter genre, and it's likely the first shotty you'll pick up in Fallout.
I hate this thing's
It's
mechanics.
simply a generic double barrel, and it doesn't try too hard to be special. I will say though, the design does seem a little bit off. Like it's noticeably thicker all around than what it should be, but maybe it's just bulking season. The only other flaw is that you'll always reload 2 shells, even if you shot just 1, but that's a game-wide issue. But overall, it's pretty solid, and it is bearable. But at the same time, it is really hard to mess up a double barrel that bad. I'll give it 3 out of 5 bottle caps. Oh boy, now for the hunting rifle. It could have been great, but they mucked
I'm
up.
sorry if I'm discriminatory towards those left-hand users. Why is the bolt on the left? Here's how I... Actually, you know what? Oh, man, I don't even have... You know, I'll kind of simulate a Nerf gun. Here's how I hold my bolt-action rifles. I actually hold this, and let's say this is the bolt. I'd go, boom. I'd go, boom. Boom. Like that. With the bolt, you'd have to go, boom. 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 I hate that. Why is the bolt on the left?
So bad for no reason. The first glaring issue with this gun is that it is left-handed. And I'm not trying to hate on lefties here, but
Same.
in a world dominated by right-handers, it doesn't make sense for all the bolt-action rifles to be left-handed. You can see that when operating the bolt, your character has to awkwardly lift up the gun and use their left hand to pull it back, which then takes your aim off target, and it just
Exactly.
uncomfortable to do. There's no excuse as to why Bethesda did this. They knew better, especially since the hunting rifle in the classic games was correctly right-handed. Not only that, but the majority of the time, you'll find that the hunting rifle is in a sawed-off state, which is definitely an odd decision. There's zero benefit to cutting down a precision rifle. Rifles certainly don't come out of the factory like this, so that means that the raiders or whoever has been doing this is deliberately going around and cutting down every single hunting rifle in sight. They must be Call of Duty players who thought it would give them a bonus aim down sight speed, but in reality, it'll severely hinder your accuracy and stability. Good luck hitting anything with this chode. Even when it's fully upgraded, the left-handed bolt still ruins it. Terrible design. They done goofed on this one. I rate it to 1 out of 5 bottles.
I think they should honestly just made a right-hand receiver
Barely.
or right-hand one that makes it go faster.
Another disappointment.
The Tommy gun.
Nah, just joking. I'll address the submachine gun now. It's obviously based off of the Thompson, but it's like a Walmart Great Value version. Either that or it's supposed to be a toy. This thing doesn't look natural, and it belongs in the uncanny valley because it comes close, but it's eerily dissimilar. One of the glaring issues is that this gun is left-handed too, and the proportions are a little bit off. It's noticeably fatter than the real Thompson, while also lacking several prominent details. By default, it comes with a stubby stock and a tiny drum, which somehow stores 50 rounds.
The Thompson would be in the Fall series because it was before the Second World War.
Which is yet another letdown. Speaking of letdowns, so is the damage profile.
No
Despite
kidding.
45
This is what I was
caliber,
mean by
this
the
thing is
automatic. This thing is
which makes
ass.
it nearly unusable if you're trying to play seriously. The only exception would be the legendary spray and pray variant, but if you can't afford that, then you're better off using literally anything else. So the submachine gun just looks goofy, and it's not effective in combat.
If it could shoot,
It's yet another prime example of a toy-like gun, which hurts your immersion levels.
if this shot 38, I would
Bottle caps.
take it.
This one blows. That rifle is a pretty good option for taking out enemies.
Can I help? I'm gonna help you first.
The combat rifle is the best gun in the game. 45, 308, and 38. 38, here's why I like that. I actually have my little tiny close range gun, chamber 38, instead of 45, because 38 is hella common. You can find 38 legit everywhere. It is the most common round in the game. And even when it's still, even when I fire that gun and I shoot and I use it, it actually still manages to have good damage because I have a 2-shot and I have good build perks towards it. Oh, he's killing the pillars of the community. I don't blame him.
That's balanced. That's the problem though. This gun shouldn't be using 45. It's called a rifle, yet it's using pistol ammunition, which would make it either an SMG or a carbine. What makes it even more confusing is that the magazine is obviously designed for rifle caliber ammunition due to its size. There's no sense in making a magazine.
Wait, isn't 45 like this tiny?
45. So, in reality,
This tiny and the mag's like this big.
the only way it makes sense is when you upgrade it to 308s, but that should be the default caliber. To give it some credit, at least the ejection port is on the right side, but where I won't give it any points is for the aesthetics. It's just not very pretty. It looks like something a kindergartner would draw if you told them to draw a rifle. It's an odd design choice for sure, especially considering it looks like a Russian PPSH. The themes here really
Actually, kind of
don't
does.
seem
Like,
very American.
it actually deadass looks like a Russian
This
PPSH.
gun loses points for being functionally confused and having conflicting aesthetics. Again, yet another unnecessary change from previous games. For a combat rifle, Bethesda should have just went with the BAR or the G3. Not this garbage. I rate it 1 out of 5 bottle caps. Moving on to its cousin, the combat shotgun. It's basically got the same exact look as the combat rifle, but this one is a shotgun variant. Honestly, it can be tough to discern this one from the combat rifle at first glance because they are nearly identical.
You tell by the circular bolt on the left.
Ask me. So I don't need to reiterate myself too much on the aesthetics. It's kind of ugly and it looks too much like a PPSA.
Oh yeah, right. The reason I don't like combat rifle loading, you have to load a gun. You have to cock back and push. Literally, in the Second World War, you never had to do that with a lot of the guns. In fact, this is in no way a real gun, but it is a really close. Oh wow. I mean, it's no way close to a real gun, but this actually is one of the closest operating guns to a real gun. So the gun, here's how they reload it: is that they push back like a regular, but with most guns in this day of age, do this. You don't have to do it. So I like reloading this gun. That was actually a really smooth reload. I love the Helios, and that's why. Helios Nerf guns are so good.
For its function, well, I guess it would function. And in practice, it is pretty fun to use. Ultimately, though, that doesn't make a
Dude, I don't know why. Double barrel shotgun feels like this, but when you get a kill with a combat shotgun, it's one of the most satisfying things. I don't know why it is, but the combat shotgun, it is so damn satisfying. Like, why? It's clean, bro. I love the combat shotgun. One of my favorite Fallout guns.
Out of 5 bottle caps. Now I suppose I have to mention the assault rifle, or whatever the hell this thing is.
Oh, I hate these. You know these guns can weigh up to 26 pounds?
LMG, but I can see why Bethesda was confused when classifying this gun, because it's a cursed abomination that was fused together from other guns. Just looking at it, you can tell that the barrel is inspired by the Lewis gun, which is a British World War I water-cooled LMG, and the iron sights are that of an AA gun. Even weirder, the foregrip looks an awful lot like an M249, which is a modern LMG. The aesthetics are certainly clashing, and this thing shouldn't exist. Water-cooled guns were already phased out by World War II, so why would the US Army still be using them well into the 21st century? It's certainly not practical or logical to do so, and the design is flawed in so many ways. This monstrosity is obese and takes up way too much space.
And it's heavy.
It's so comically unergonomic that it looks more like a blimp rather than a firearm. You could Photoshop the pretty one with a stock and a grip attached onto it, then place the picture next to the photo.
Oh my god, it actually looks really good. It looks, not really, it looks so...
It's an odd choice too, and I would let it pass, but I can tell the only reason this design choice was made was so that they could reuse animations from the pipe gun. It's another lazy and goofy design from Bethesda. It doesn't really fit the theme, nor does it make sense, especially considering that guns like the G3 and M16 were present in previous games. I can only assume that this special assault rifle was created later in the timeline, but the question is why? It's regressive in every aspect, and sports no advantages over the already...
Yeah, I think my most hated gun in the game is probably the assault rifle, and I'm sorry to people that hate it, and I might come off as a noob when I say this. The ammo is so damn hard to find, for me at least. I see way more 45 caliber than this, and that's a dumb one, I know that. But like, the ammo is just not good. The damage is fine, not gonna lie, I like the damage, but the ammo is just not fun to find. It's pain.
Established and combat-proven assault rifles. I really hope this one gets retconned out of the Fallout lore. It seems like a fever dream for sure. And after this video, I'm gonna pretend like it never existed. With all of that being said, the assault rifle gets 0 out of 5 bottle caps, because it is the ugliest gun in the entire game. Now that we're done with that, hopefully I never have to lay my eyes upon that abomination ever again. Let's take a moment and cleanse our eyes with some bleach. I'll give you all a break and review the Deliverer. This little pocket pistol is based on the Walther PPK, and it's a pretty good representation overall. I do have a couple of complaints though. It's chambered for the 10mm cartridge, and the magazine somehow holds 12 rounds, but that's just not possible.
Yeah, it looks like it holds like 7.
In reality, the PPK commonly uses 32 or 380, and it can only hold 7 or 8 rounds in the standard magazine. So I have no clue how this tiny magazine can hold 12. It may not be a game breaker, but I will have to deduct a few points for that. Other than that little nitpick, it's a pretty good gun, and it's one of the better ones in Fallout for sure. I'll be nice this time, and rate it 4 out of 5 bottle caps.
I
On
like
to the
that.
next one, the 44 revolver. This one is based on the Smith & Wesson Model 29, and it's another fair representation, so I don't have too much to rant about. The only gripe I have is that it's forever stuck in single action, when it should be capable of double action. You can choose to fire double action revolvers in single action if you so wish, but it's just a little disappointing that you can't use it to its full potential. Also, when reloading it, you'll always reload 6 rounds, which is odd, but it does work. And I would assume there's a speed loader involved in that, but if you slow it down, you can see that there is indeed no speed loader. Or maybe it's just got that invisible paint job on it. But no, your character just shoves all 6 rounds right into the cylinder simultaneously with their bare hands. I suppose they're just really good with their fingers. Yet again, another prime example of laziness from Bethesda. Overall, though, the 44 is pretty good, and it is serviceable. I shall stay benevolent and give this one 3 out of 5 bottle caps. So that covers all the guns from the basic.
44 is fine backup.
About the DLC. Let's start with the radium rifle. This one's pretty interesting because
I love that gun.
and ballistic damage. It's actually based on the Volkssturmgewehr, which is a historical World War II weapon. In Fallout 4 here, it's been modified to make use of some kind of technology which infuses it with the power of radiation. I'm not sure why that would be necessary. I suppose it's something the children of Adam would do. They do like their radiation after all. However, I have no clue how this contraption would actually function. It just seems like a whole bunch of extra work for not much payout. The Volkssturmgewehr in particular is also an odd choice, considering that it's a rather rare German weapon. So how did all the children of Adam get these guns in the first place? It's not like they ordered them from across the ocean. They even had to modify the weapon to use 25, because its native 792 Curse cartridge cannot be circulated in the combat. And for some odd reason, they decided to take off the iron sights on this gun because aiming is overrated, I suppose? Other than all that nonsense, the radium rifle is not too bad. I can appreciate the idea of turning an old gun into something new, but this one just seems out of place. I'll give it 1.5 bottle caps. And now for the lever action.
The only thing I hate about the lever action is the ammo. I hate finding the ammo. You know what sucks is that it uses 45 in Fallout 76, but Fallout 76 is just kind of ass. That sucks. That's the only reason I like Fallout 76, because being a Far Harbor player, I love how it used 45.
Fine, but this is Fallout 4, so it's got the ejection port on the wrong side, as usual. You can tell it's noticeably inspired by the Marlin lever action, and while it does look plenty different, it still looks pretty good, and I see no problems with it whatsoever. That's what I would say if I didn't know how to count. It appears Bethesda doesn't know simple math, because with the lever action, your player will always reload 5 rounds into the tube, no matter what. Even if you only shot 1 round, you will still load 5 whole rounds, which is physically impossible. I'm not sure where those extra rounds would even go. Perhaps they get warped into that special pocket dimension like I mentioned earlier. That's the only lore explanation that I can think of. But no, there's no justifying this. To make matters even worse, when you upgrade the weapon with a longer magazine tube, it doesn't actually extend your magazine.
That's bull.
The first time I picked it up, I was so excited.
Dude, I have a barrel, like 3, I know they're bigger bullet, I don't know, they're smaller bullets, because I always use 22 for my guns, but I have a 22 lever action, and it can fit 15 bullets in it, and I think if you had to do 308, if you had somehow got it to 308, which I'm not saying it's possible, but if it were 308, the length of it would probably warrant like 10 bullets, maybe. Wait, I meant 306 or something.
I reloaded it for the first time. I was struck with overwhelming disappointment, and my immersion was completely shattered. It seriously pains my soul to watch as my character unimmersively reloads the incorrect amount of rounds. Literally unplayable. Not only does it break your immersion, but it also makes the gun weaker due to its artificially prolonged reload. What's especially puzzling is that New Vegas had a working bullet counter reload on its lever action, so
What?
Bethesda has the technology to implement this mechanic, they just simply refuse to do it for Fallout 4. Whatever the reasoning may be, it was a stupid decision. And it's just another example of their laziness and lack of attention to detail. They did finally fix the problem, though. In Fallout 76, that is. They patched lever action reload to work properly, but they forgot about Fallout 4, though. But I guess that doesn't really matter in the end, because modders fixed that issue long before Bethesda ever addressed it. Maybe I'm being a little dramatic over a problem that's already fixed, but that doesn't change the fact that my first Far Harbor playthrough was ruined due to the lever action being broken. I will never forget Bethesda for this atrocity, for the crimes they committed against the gun community. They shall pay for their insolence. I give the lever action -5 out of 5 bottle caps. Anyway, on to the last gun, the handmade rifle from Nuka World. It's obviously based on the
AK, yep.
and more specifically, it's inspired by the infamous Shovel AK. And that's pretty funny.
Wait,
I'll give
what?
some bonus points for that.
Shovel
It's a
AK?
homemade- It's noticeably different because, well, I suppose it'd be hard to replicate a machine AK with simple tools. And that makes perfect sense to me. But again, this one has a left-sided ejection port as well, so I will have to deduct a point for that. Other than that, I'd have to say that the handmade rifle is my favorite gun from Fallout 4.
It is, but it has stupid ammo as well.
Rugged aesthetic, so it fits perfectly in the wasteland. It's also one of the most effective guns in the game too. It's a DPS machine, to say the least, and it simply feels good to shoot. For the most part, the animations in Fallout 4 kind of suck, but the handmade rifle is perhaps the only exception. They're pretty satisfying, honestly. No other complaints here. I genuinely like the handmade rifle, and while it could certainly be better, it's a step in the right direction. It's one of the few ugly guns that I'll give a pass to, because it makes sense. 4 out of 5 bottle caps for this one. I do like it. I'd like to see Bethesda make more handmade guns like this.
Do my
rather
problems
than
out.
sneaky hype guns. And that wraps up everything wrong. The guns.
Yeah, I hate how guns are in
There was
this
plenty of
game.
weapons in total, but like I said, I wanted to focus on the ballistic weapons in this one. Bethesda certainly needs to step up their game in this Fallout. It is a shooter game after all, so the guns play a vital role in the gameplay. And if that part is shoddily done, it can spoil the whole experience. I know not everyone is as stringent as me. I wouldn't say I'm super strict.
Wait, everything wrong with energy weapons.
Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy, Randy Boy, back at it again with the Fallout 4 video. And welcome back to another gun rant, where I overanalyze video game guns for fun. If you haven't seen my previous videos on this subject, then you ought to check them out right into this one. Basically, my whole point is that all the weapons in Fallout are extremely cursed, and I just love them so much, in fact, that this is my third video on this topic. I'm just very passionate about this game, you could say. This time around, I'll be critiquing and rating the designs of the energy weapons, along with any other special...
Now, I will say there are laser weapons in the real world that actually can cause damage. The Navy has developed a naval laser that pretty sure they did. They put them on destroyers. In fact, even interesting enough, the Navy has developed a railgun. However, it is very, very much at its prototype stage, and it's kind of weak. It destroys itself, but it is a really powerful, interesting invention.
Their functionality down to the atomic level, but I'll try my best to speculate. Even though I'm no expert in this technology, there's some rather... in classic Fallout fashion, some of these guns just make 0 sense whatsoever. So, let's go ahead and see just how cursed these guns truly are. So first, we should start with the perfect weapon to set the tone.
The
It's
laser
everyone's
musket.
favorite, the laser musket. It's likely the very first energy weapon you'll pick up, and it leaves a pretty pathetic first impression. Imagine you walk out of a vault, kill some goons raiding
The bad thing is, if you
then
miss
you
with
pick
this
up a one-gun
gun,
toy that
you
shoots
will get
laser beams.
destroyed.
Amazing. Fallout 4 especially has an issue with toy-like guns, and the laser musket is the epitome of it all. You have to wind up this gun like a damn jack-in-the-box toy. To be as fair as possible, crank guns do exist, such as the famous Gatling gun. But this is not a Gatling gun. Instead of the gun firing continuously while operating the crank, you have to use the crank to charge up the weapon, and then it'll fire. So, that's kind of lame.
If it generates a motor, then how is it?
Sense of badassery. It feels extremely goofy, if anything, and it just makes me feel like a total clown having to crank this thing up. It's supposed to be a laser gun powered by fusion cells, so why would the crank?
Wait, there is. Yeah, they're right.
I guess
if it tried to generate,
somehow, some way, the gears use mechanical energy and store it as potential energy, and the whatever the thing in the middle is, the laser chamber, you could call it. But that's the thing. I don't see why you would need to charge up the weapon to have to fire it. That's not how fusion cells work in Fallout. At least, that's what I remember. Please, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I know, all the weapons in Fallout that use fusion cells are automatic, and they don't require any sort of manual loading in between shots. After all, laser weapons are supposed to be futuristic, so that's what you'd expect. Yet, this design is completely regressive. I get that it's supposed to be a post-war handmade weapon, but still, it doesn't make any sense. The biggest issue, really, is that you don't even load fusion cells into the weapon, yet that's the ammunition that it uses, so I guess it just teleports into the laser chamber through sheer...
I actually never realized
but,
that.
I
How?
think it's just a huge oversight. Other than its core design, it's an absolute chore to use in combat. You have to spend more time cranking this thing, rather than actually shooting it. And over time, it gets really annoying to have to spam the reload key over and over and over and over again. Provided that you have it fully upgraded, it deals some pretty good damage, but overall, the DPS is lackluster, and there's no reason to choose this over anything else. And God forbid, should you miss, you'll have to awkwardly crank up your goofy little laser toy while being gunned down by men with real guns. After picking up the laser musket off that dead Minuteman, it becomes clear as to why the rest of the squad was wiped out, because their main surface weapon is absolute garbage. Out of all of the designs they could craft up, they settled on this. But why? There's no reason why the laser musket has to have this crank. It was only put there to make it unique and quirky, I guess, but it's more of a silly gimmick than anything, and that's why I never use it. I absolutely despise the laser musket. Its design makes zero sense, and it's zero fun to use. So I'll give it 0 out of 5 bottle caps. But let's go ahead and move on to the regular laser gun. First off, I'll say the aesthetics are rather lacking. It's basically a rectangular prism with a stock on it, which is disappointing because
I like the laser gun.
I was expecting a cool, futuristic design. You'd think the manufacturers would invest more research into the ergonomics of this high-tech, futuristic weapon. But no, it's just a plastic box, and it doesn't look too comfortable to use. For being such a futuristic laser weapon, it has some rather rudimentary iron sights. Like, come on, the pipe gun has better irons than this. Sure, you can solve that easily by using a reflex sight or a scope, but the default sights shouldn't be that basic. Also, I suppose I should mention this now. Should laser weapons actually have recoil? They are shooting laser beams after all, and they don't have mass, do they? I don't know how they would work in real life because, you know, sadly, I don't own one. If there's any scientists out there, please let me know what your theory is. Are you all team
I don't
recoil
think it'd be
or no recoil? Either way, I'm sure we can all agree that the recoil on the laser gun is ridiculously high. It's got more recoil than the assault rifle, handmade rifle, and combat rifle combined. Again, it makes no sense as to why such a futuristic weapon would be so uncontrollable and inaccurate.
Especially when you put the automatic shotgun configuration on it.
Laser have to be limited to being a repeating weapon. Couldn't it just be one long continuous beam until you let off the trigger? If anything, I suppose it's limited in that aspect to prevent the gun from overheating. But still, it'd be cool to see a laser gun that has a continuous...
Don't cross the
really
stream.
Too much else to say. I can't say I hate the laser gun with a burning passion, but it's certainly not a well thought out design. Overall, it's boring and uninspiring. Sadly, it's just another generic toy-like gun that has no soul. I'll give it 1 out of 5 bottle caps. You know what? I take back all that I said about the laser gun, because the Institute's version makes it look like a 10 out of 10 in comparison. It's basically the same thing as the regular laser gun, with the same animations and function, but with a different model. Somehow, though, it's even uglier and bulkier.
I don't really like
Just
the
look at
Institute.
it. This obese cereal box takes up the whole damn screen. Do you really
Oh my
expect
god, I
me to
never
believe
realized that.
that some of the smartest minds in the post-war world made this abomination? Like, you'd think they'd improve upon the pre-war design, but no. They took a look at it and said,
The only thing that makes the Institute rifle good is the freaking iron sights. That's it.
I swear, these Yankee liberals don't know a darn thing about designing guns. Like, come on, it looks like a kindergartner drew this thing. The only thing it has going for it over the regular laser gun is that, you know, at least all the internals are covered, but that's literally it. In every other aspect, it's a straight downgrade, and it pains
It
me
is.
to look at it. I don't have much else to add about the Institute laser gun specifically. It's just a lazy reskin of the regular laser gun. A very ugly reskin at that. I actually hate this one, and I never want to look at it again. 0 out of 5 bottle caps. For another energy weapon, we have the plasma gun. Instead of shooting lasers, this one shoots green balls of energy, which do have a good amount of mass. They are slow-moving projectiles, though, so you'll have to compensate for ranged targets. This one is up for speculation because, I don't know how plasma balls would actually work, but I would really hope they would move faster than that. A projectile this slow is definitely not optimal for a ranged combat situation. Like, seriously, it moves slower than a damn airsoft gun. But hey, at least the projectile travels in a straight line, so you don't have to worry about that part. But still, that's the main reason why I don't like using the plasma gun. Because the projectile is too damn slow, and I miss most of my shots at range. Sometimes you might get lucky, and your target will just stand there and eat your plasma balls. Because, as we all know, the AI in Fallout is absolutely brain dead. When it comes to the actual design of the weapon, well, it does have some visual interest. I like all the exposed bits and moving parts. It's pretty neat. And it looks like it could be a wonder weapon in COD Zombies. On the downside, though, it's got these same issues as the laser gun. The ergonomics are an afterthought, and the iron sights are dog water. I think it's really silly how all these high-tech weapons sell themselves short when it comes to those features. They are very important after all. At this point, I honestly think we ought to have all energy weapons in Fallout come with a built-in integral reflex sight. And also, they really need a stock that's more than just a basic metal frame. That would be much more characteristic for the level of technology it's supposed to represent. Overall, I think the plasma gun is kinda cool. It's a little cartoonish, but I do like it. All it needs is a few improvements to its ergonomics and performance to make it more practical. I'll give the plasma gun 2.5 out of 5 bottle caps. In a similar, yet totally different vein, we've also got the Alien Blaster. It's another plasma-based gun, I think. I don't know exactly what it is, because it's, alien technology, so, of course, I'm gonna have zero clue on how that thing works. Either way, the ammunition is referred to as Alien Blaster rounds, which are very slow-moving orbs of energy. These are even slower than the plasma guns. Forget airsoft. These have less velocity than a Nerf gun. Like I said, these slow-moving projectiles are definitely not optimal for ranged combat. And these are so slow that you'll have a hard time hitting moving targets past 10 yards. The amount you have to compensate for is ludicrous. And if you couple that with the garbage iron sights, it's basically only usable at point-blank ranges. You'd think this advanced alien civilization could come up with an ingenious weapon, one that is light years ahead of humanity. I mean, they have the technology to travel around the galaxy in spaceships, but they can't even make a half-decent weapon. The Alien Blaster is an awful design, and it's yet another perfect example of a silly, gimmicky, toy-like gun. Sure, the aesthetics are just a part of Zayton culture, and normally I would let that part slide, only if the rest of the weapon made sense and was actually usable in combat. So yeah, I hate the Alien Blaster, and it's completely irrelevant anyway, so I'll give it 0 out of 5 bottle caps. Now for a proper...
How do you solve a monster-sized problem? With Miro!
Oh.
Try new Almond Breeze Extra Creamy, our creamiest almond milk ever.
Here, man.
For blaster design, the Zetans should take advice from Earthlings, because the Thirst Zapper is easily the pinnacle of energy weapon technology. I mean, it's literally just perfect, and I have no complaints. It's simply a toy water gun that you can use to play games in Nuka World, or to fry Coulter's suit. So it serves its purpose well. It's definitely the most realistic and stylish weapon in the whole game, too. Like I said, I can't think of anything to criticize. The Thirst Zapper is truly the peak of Bethesda's weapon design. Nothing else can top this one. 5 out of 5 bottle caps. I love it. Now let's move on to the Cryolator. It's like a flamethrower, but with ice. And just like the Flamer, the range is absolutely abysmal. But at least it deals a good amount of damage. If you upgrade it to use the crystallized barrel though, then it'll shoot out deadly snowballs, which are actually stupidly overpowered. Which is hilarious, because this weapon wasn't even intended to be used as one. It was created in Vault 111, simply because the Overseer was bored and wanted something to play with. So yes, this is quite literally another toy gun. But it looks more like a pile of rubbish and scrap metal. To be fair, that's part of its lore. It's obviously made from spare parts that the Vault Dwellers could find. And I guess I'll commend them for being resourceful, but still, this thing is just not very pretty, and it's unnecessarily bulky. So much so that it's actually classified as a heavy weapon. I didn't even know that until I looked it up on the wiki, but anyway, I don't know what to think about the Cryolator, really. In some ways, I like it. In other ways, I absolutely hate it. What I like most about this design is that you'll see the weapon freeze over when not shooting, which is very visually interesting. But that's about it when it comes to looks. I also think it's pretty fun to use, and it's satisfying to see your enemies freeze up and shatter into little pieces. Very cool. It may be an ugly gun, but at least it's powerful enough to be taken seriously, unlike some other examples. Honestly, it's a bit too powerful. Way too much, actually. I think it's goofy that a glorified snowball thrower has higher DPS than a minigun, but obviously, Bethesda knows how to balance their game properly, so I won't question it. One of the biggest downsides of the Cryolator is that you'll run out of ammo pretty quickly.
Yeah, the
And
ammo.
after your initial supply is depleted, you'll have a hard time finding any more. It's unique ammunition after all, only used in the Cryolator, so you won't be finding it all over the Commonwealth. It's a miracle that somehow vendors will sell you the ammunition, but still, it's just not enough to use this gun regularly. I find it to be a one-time use weapon. After I burn through my initial supply, I quickly forget about it and move on to something else. It's just sad how this weapon was implemented. And I think the whole Corral gun concept should have been taken more seriously. It should have been made as a legitimate weapon, not this silly toy that we ended up getting. The Cryolator isn't that bad, really, but it is ultimately disappointing. I'll give it 1.5 out of 5 bottle caps. For another elemental weapon, there's the Pestle. It's
actually
creative and interesting, to say the least. It shoots out a frenzy of electricity and zaps everyone in its path. The arcs even jump from target to target, so it's a handy tool for taking out crowds of enemies. I can't say it's super overpowered or underpowered. It seems balanced. Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to tell what's balanced in this game because of how horribly balanced everything is. But anyway, besides its performance, its overall design is weird, and I don't even know where to begin dissecting it. I can appreciate some of the unique elements here, but I can't say I like it overall. I also think it's odd that it doesn't have a stock, but it's whatever. You know the drill at this point. It's a fantasy weapon, it doesn't make sense, it's big and bulky, and it looks a little cartoonish. I do like the concept behind it, and this one looks to be a handmade weapon, so that'll explain its crudeness, but still, it just looks ugly. That's all I gotta say about the Tesla rifle. I'm just not filled with enough energy to go in depth about it, and this weapon is irrelevant anyway. I'll give it a solid 1 bottle cap and call it a day. Another interesting automatron weapon Soltron
I
head.
hate this
How many
weapon.
of y'all remember this one? I sure don't, and I never used it, and nobody should ever use it, because it's probably the worst weapon in the entire game. I'd rather use the thirst sample than this thing, because at
Same.
least that one doesn't give you cancer. When using the Assaultron head, it'll give you a big chunk of rads with each shot. Is it worth it? No, not one bit. The damage is pathetic. You have to charge up the weapon too, but even at full blast, it's underwhelming. So it has a low DPS and it damages the user. There's zero reason to use this weapon. It must be meant as a joke. I can appreciate some good humor, but come on, at least show some love and care. That's the main problem. No effort was put into making this weapon. All the devs did was take an Assaultron head model and give it default pistol animations. It would have been way cooler if you held this thing up like Simba and blasted your enemies with a mighty, unending laser beam. But what we got is one of the lamest weapons in the entire game. And just like several other unique weapons, it's completely irrelevant and unusable in a normal playthrough. The only way anyone would ever consider using the Assaultron head is if they wanted to do some kind of challenge run, but you'd have to be a total buffoon to do that. No one would dare use the Assaultron head. It's unusable. I use this word a lot with Bethesda, but this time it's totally warranted. Laziness. The Assaultron head is a lazy design, and it was a complete waste of time even putting this thing into the game.
Huh? Food?
0 out of 5 bottle caps. I hate it. Now, if for some reason you do want to deal radiation damage, but in the correct direction, then you should try out the Gamma Gun. It's a little handmade gun that shoots out waves of radiation. No clue how it works, but let's assume it's possible. Would this weapon actually be useful? Maybe, but in Fallout, it only works half the time because its only damage type is radiation. So it's
Yeah, it does good
completely
at blowing
useless
things
against all
back.
the wasteland's irradiated monsters and animals. It only causes damage to humans, and even then, it's not like it outperforms regular weapons, so that begs the question, why make this gun in the first place? I get that the children of Adam love their radiation, but there's no reason to make a radiation weapon when you live out in the middle of nowhere, and your most common enemy would be wild irradiated monsters. I don't think they thought that part through. They aren't that bright, though, so I suppose it makes sense if you look at it that way. But still, the Gamma Gun is just silly and pointless, and overall, the look of the weapon is ugly too. I suppose that's expected since it's handmade, but I don't care. I don't like it. I can't say I hate it either, nor do I care enough to examine every last inch of this weapon. In the end, it's just another irrelevant, gimmick weapon. I'll give it the standard 1 out of 5 bottle caps. In some cases, you're better off using the flare gun as a weapon. At least this one deals physical damage. Of course, its main purpose is to shoot a flare into the sky to call for help, but obviously, it's way more fun to use it as a combat weapon. In all seriousness, I really can't complain about the flare gun. It's a flare gun. It's actually a very accurate representation. It's funny that out of all of the guns in Fallout, a damn flare gun is one of the most realistic and reasonable designs. But yeah, I have no complaints here. The flare gun is perfect. 5 out of 5 bottle caps. Nice. For another realistic design, we have the Syringer. It's a pipe gun that shoots darts. And honestly, it's a pretty solid looking model. I really like how it's just a simple pneumatic pipe gun. No unnecessary moving parts or anything. It's probably the most realistic handmade weapon in Fallout 4. I find it funny how the regular pipe guns literally defy the laws of physics, while this one actually makes a good amount of sense. The sad part, though, is that this weapon is completely useless. For such a simple scrap gun, you'd expect it to be a common early game weapon, but no, it's actually
No kidding, this thing is rare. I just craft syringes, not even.
So, by the time you find it, you already have plenty of real guns that deal lots of damage. Not only that, but you won't get any free ammo for this thing. You have to craft it for yourself, which further makes the Syringer less accessible. Even if you do go out of your way to pick this thing up and craft the ammo for it, it's just not worth it. The darts don't deal direct damage. Instead, they all have different status effects. The bleeding darts do deal damage over time, though, so at least those work, but the rest are too situational. And I don't like playing around in combat. I'd rather make it simple and shoot to kill. It's too bad, really, because the overall design of this Ranger is pretty cool, so I will give it some credit for that part. But unfortunately, the implementation and balancing spoiled the rest of it. 2 out of 5 bottle caps. It could have been great. Another interesting, unique weapon is the railway rifle. As you can infer from the name, it's a steam-powered gun that shoots railroad spikes. Very, creative idea, I'll give him that. But even if it was possible to make, it wouldn't be worth all the time and effort. You're better off using an actual gun, or just an air gun for that matter. A steam-powered gun is simply not practical, and it probably weighs a ton too. The railway rifle obviously only exists for the sake of having a weapon to fit the railroad's theme, but perhaps they took it too literally. It even makes train noises when you reload it, which is kind of funny, I'll admit. It's also pretty fun to nail degenerates against walls with this thing. However, I can't take myself seriously when using this weapon. It's just jarring how out of place it is. Maybe it would be better off in a steampunk game, not Fallout. Overall, it's a goofy, ugly, oversized gun that doesn't make any sense. But I'll give it a little bit of credit for being fun to use.
Yeah, it is fun.
1.5 out of 5 bottle caps. Now for a true railgun, we have the Gauss rifle. It uses the power of magnetism to launch a 2mm projectile at extremely high velocities. This is another fantasy weapon, but railguns are slowly starting to become more prevalent now. Just in the past few years, real Gauss rifle prototypes have been produced, and they are functional. The Gauss rifle in Fallout 4, though, is way more powerful than the ones you'll see in real life, but we can go ahead and assume that's because the technology is simply more advanced. It also looks like it shoots out some kind of energized beam in addition to the projectile, which we haven't seen demonstrated in real life just yet. Perhaps that's the secret that we need to make these guns more practical. In this case, I do like that you need to charge up the weapon to make it deal full damage, and unlike the other chargeable weapons in the game, this one actually dishes out some serious damage.
Yeah.
It's super satisfying to get those long range.
Bad ammo.
Overall,
Its ammo is bad, but if you take the ammo off it, it's a really good. Oh yeah, right. The only other bad thing is the weight. It weighs more than me, and I weigh a lot.
And seeing the coils light up before firing is a neat spectacle. My only complaint is that it's way too bulky, but perhaps that's necessary for all the tech needed to make the weapon function or something. Other than that, I think the top fit disc magazine is an odd choice, but it's not like those are unheard of. Overall, the Gauss rifle is genuinely a good-looking weapon. I can't believe how it can make Bethesda for a fantasy weapon design, but they did do a good job on this one. I can't say for sure if this exact design would work in real life, but it looks believable enough. I could be totally wrong, though, because given Bethesda's track record so far, they've proven they don't have a clue on how guns work. And it'd be the twist of the century if the only gun they got right was the Gauss rifle. So if there happens to be any Gauss rifle experts out there, then please let me know what your opinions are on this one. I know I just need to come back in 10 years and re-examine this weapon. But for now, it looks functional. It does look similar to the real-life examples that we already have. And this might be a case where reality imitates art. They both have that sci-fi futuristic aesthetic, but the one in Fallout is, of course, more retro, and it fits perfectly into the wasteland. I'm not kidding, guys. I like the Gauss rifle. It's one of the most intriguing weapons in the whole game, visually and functionally. Solid job on this one. 4 out of 5 bottle caps. Whoever designed the Gauss rifle deserves a raise, a cookie, and a kiss on the cheek. Of course, it could have been done better in some ways, but it's about time I show some positivity. I'm not that biased after all. I do try to get credit where credit's due. It's just that the vast majority of the weapons in Fallout 4 are utter trash. And I'm glad I'm finally done with this little mini-series of gun rants, because I have now suffered from irreparable brain damage after subjecting myself to these god-awful weapons. There's still plenty more I could have gone on about, but I think I'm done for now. That's enough ranting for me. But I'm curious to see what y'all have to say.
Heavy weapons. Yes.
Make Father's Day even more meaningful this year with help from Blaine's Farm and Fleet.
Oh. Nice.
Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy, Randy Boy, back at it again with another Fallout 4 video. And for this video, I'm going to be showing y'all everything wrong.
Oh, that was a good one.
In Fallout 4. I hope you're ready for this rant, because the heavy weapons are the most disastrous weapon category in the entire game. You may need to take a few extra doses of cringe away while watching this, because their
Cringe
designs
away.
are absolutely cursed, and some of them completely disregard basic mechanics, making them rather unimmersive. I know it's just a game, but you have to admit that the weapon designs in Fallout 4 are subpar, and they could have been so much better. It's especially disappointing what Bethesda did to the heavy weapons, because Fallout 4 strongly encourages you to use power armor, yet the weapons designed to be used with power armor all have terrible designs that ruin your power trip fantasy. I will not stand for such blatant disrespect towards heavy weaponry, so I'm going to scrutinize each weapon design seen in Fallout 4 and point out where exactly they went wrong. While I'm at it, I'm also going to assign each weapon a rating based on how much I like it. Let's go ahead and get right into it.
The Fat Man.
Let's start off things with a blast, shall we? Introducing the Fat Man. This big boy shoots mini nukes, which are far more powerful than your average explosive. It's one of the most iconic weapons in the Fallout franchise, and for good reason, because it's stupid fun to use and makes a huge boom. A nuke launcher like this would surely be devastating on the battlefield, but the actual design is heavily flawed and makes no sense whatsoever. Instead of being a rocket or a missile, the mini nuke is literally just a bomb, and the launcher itself is pneumatically powered, meaning its power source is compressed air. So, instead of striking the projectile and making it expel some kind of exhaust, the Fat Man is just throwing nukes, like a slingshot.
It is, and that's a really flawed
I
design.
don't think this thing could actually generate enough force to launch a mini nuke for any worthwhile distance. Even in game, we can see that the projectile doesn't travel too far, maybe 100 yards at most, and if you do manage to stretch out its range with that perfect angle, then the nuke won't even detonate, because Fallout's engine can't render objects at that distance, which is just kinda sad. Either way though, I'm sure we can all agree that this is not the most efficient nor safest design for a nuke launcher. The smallest nuke launcher ever made was known as the Davy Crockett.
Yes, the
which is
Davy
a
Crockett.
giant stationary recoilless
Forgot
launcher.
about the Davy
Right now,
Crockett.
I would just call it a rocket launcher. Like every other launcher, the projectile is self-propelled to maximize its effective range, and this one could go over a mile. After all, you'll want to have plenty of distance between yourself and a nuclear payload, but even a mile wasn't all that safe in this case. I'm assuming that's where the idea for the Fat Man came from, but this one was scaled down and made into a shoulder-mounted infantry launcher, which is pretty cool and all, but the concept of safety was completely launched out the window here. I don't know why, but whoever designed this decided to make it into a close-quarters weapon, which is super goofy and extremely dangerous. I'm sure we've all accidentally killed ourselves with the Fat Man due to
Yeah.
but when you do learn how to use it without killing yourself, then I will have to admit, it is very badass, and quite the spectacle to admire. I assume this weapon was designed to be used by power armor units, and in that case, I guess it'd be a little bit safer to operate, but still, that danger is way too close for comfort. Also, this weapon doesn't really look like it'd be a pre-war invention. This rusty cheese grater looks more like something some scavenger crafted up in their shack, and that would explain why it's got such a primitive pneumatically powered system. But no, it is a pre-war weapon, which doesn't seem right at all because of how crude and unsafe it is. I don't see why the US military would opt for such an inferior design, when they obviously have the technology and resources to make proper rocket launchers. It's like they had a bunch of leftover nuclear bombs and just wanted something cheap to get rid of them. But they decided to make it the most ridiculous design ever? If the Fat Man was a post-war invention, then I might have let it slide. But it isn't, so it's ruined and unimmersive, dare I say. The Fat Man shouldn't exist in Fallout. Or at least, the lore should be changed so that it is a post-war, homemade weapon. It doesn't change the fact that it's extremely dangerous to the user, but you could make up an excuse saying it was made by a crazy raider gang who discovered a stockpile of mini-nukes. At least that makes a little bit more sense. I still think an infantry nuke launcher is an awesome concept, but the Fat Man is not a feasible design. I think a better option would have been an actual rocket launcher.
Yeah, rocket launcher like a Davy Crockett.
The Crockett launcher. That would have been perfect. Huge missed potential right there. and I'm heavily disappointed that the developers didn't capitalize on that opportunity. I really hate to say it, but the Batman's design and lore simply makes 0 sense whatsoever, so it deserves a big, fat rating of 0 bottle caps. On to the next one. I would say the missile launcher is better, but at the same time, it also manages to be leagues worse. Upon first glance, it looks alright, but it's an absolute disaster.
This Silverado keeps me connected and in control, and this touchscreen is my command center.
The reload mechanism is unique for sure. Instead of loading it directly from the front or back, the front half of the barrel flips up. So it's a break action missile launcher. Interesting. Not sure if that'd be a good design, but whatever. The real issue I have with this weapon is when you upgrade it to hold multiple missiles. That's when things start getting a little funky. The upgrades are referred to as triple and quad barrels, but they don't actually add on more barrels at all. Upgrading the missile launcher to hold 3 gives it this weird horizontal magazine. That's right, a magazine-fed missile launcher.
What?
I don't know how that would work, but if someone could figure it out, yeah, it's a fantastic idea. Or DACA is always a good thing. But this mechanism seems way too complicated for just 3 missiles. It would be so much easier to give the launcher multiple barrels. You know, just like the name of the upgrade implies. The best example I can think of is the M202 Flash. It's basically just a big rectangular prism with 4
Oh,
barrels.
basically I the quad launcher from Fortnite.
For the most part. The funny thing is,
That guy was
well,
built to
missile
combat
launcher does
flamethrowers.
attempt to mimic the M202, but it doesn't actually add more barrels. They're cut off halfway, so they aren't full working barrels. It almost looks like it'd be some kind of offset 4-shot cylinder, so you expect it to be a rotating mechanism. But no, that's not how it works. It's completely static. When firing these missiles, they just magically go off. They don't even use the barrel to launch from. They shoot out of the cylinder like when a revolver chain fires. But it's not a malfunction. That's just how the weapon was designed. I don't even have a clue how these missiles would be set off. There is no striker to ignite them. They just jump right on out like sentient beings. Even if these smart missiles could self-ignite, the backblast would melt your face off. But thankfully, there is no such thing as backblast in Fallout 4. Crisis averted, everyone. Everything's fine. Nothing's wrong. Go home. Besides all that nonsense, the actual speed of the projectile is painfully slow.
It
This is a
is.
common trope in many video games, but rockets and missiles are much faster than minigames depict them as.
Yeah.
You shoot at a target about 100 yards away, it'll be blown sky high in the blink of an eye. I don't like the excuse of, oh well, it's for gameplay purposes, because the gameplay would feel way better if the velocity was increased. That also means I can use the missile launcher more effectively for its intended purpose, to hit armored targets at range. And one last thing. The missile launcher is capable of locking onto humanoid targets, which isn't how they work in real life. They can only lock onto vehicles, but the Fallout 4 missile launcher can do it all. Maybe there's some kind of advanced heat-seeking technology here, so I'll let that part slide. But at the same time, the technology isn't so advanced because the range is severely limited. You have to get up close and personal to be able to lock onto it.
Yeah.
Making this missile launcher a close quarters weapon. It's even more apparent that this is meant for close range because you can mount a bayonet on this thing. So you can run around and stab people with a missile launcher, then blow them up at point blank. You better have some tough power armor for that tactic. But yeah, the missile launcher is awful in every aspect, and somehow manages to mess up literally every single detail that makes a missile launcher a missile launcher. I show no mercy. 0 out of 5 bottle caps, because there's no chance this thing will work. It doesn't get much better from here. The broadsider is another cursed heavy weapon that doesn't understand the fundamentals of how artillery works. It's a unique naval cannon that has been modified to be carried by hand. Is it impractical? Yes. Is it super cool? Also yes. Would it actually work? No. But not for the reason you may think. Sure, it's extremely heavy, and I doubt anyone could handle carrying around a literal cannon in their hands, but that's a problem with Fallout 4 in general. You don't need to wear power armor or have super strength to use heavy weapons, which is dumb because that's how it worked in previous games. But anyway, the main reason why this cannon is a catastrophic failure is because your character doesn't know how to load it properly, and it also defies the law of conservation of mass. When reloading this cannon, your character only shoves in the big cannonball, and that's it.
No
No
gunpowder?
powder or anything, yet the cannon still manages to work. No powder means no spark. No spark means no boom. And no boom means the big cannonball doesn't move. Yet, in Fallout 4, it just works.
Magical
I'm not sure
pocket
if it's due
dimension.
to laziness or incompetence, but they simply didn't include that one crucial step in the reload animation. Even worse, this thing has an option for an extended magazine.
Wait, what?
I don't even want to speculate about that, but let's assume it's possible. Even then, when you reload the cannon, your character still only loads in one cannonball, and somehow you can shoot 3 before having to reload again. The only way to justify all this is by saying that the Broadsider runs on pure magic. I would say Pixie does too, but your character doesn't even load that into the cannon. In reality, it's just that the developers didn't care to include proper animations for it. And that's too bad, really, because the Broadsider is pretty fun to use. It could have been such a cool and quirky heavy weapon, but the fact that your character doesn't know how to properly operate it absolutely ruins any possibility of immersion. 0 out of 5 bottle caps. Moving on. Another nautical-themed weapon we have is the
Crust that made crust good. I'm hungry.
You don't have to be a pro. You just need a funny stinger.
I had to do some research on this one, and I found out that it's based on the Greener percussion harpoon gun, which is a relic of the 1800s. You'll notice that the Fallout 4 harpoon gun is noticeably bulkier than its real-life counterpart, and there's a bunch of mods added on to make it portable, since it's an antique. I'm guessing the trappers must have found this in a museum in Far Harbor. It's an odd choice to arm yourself with, but, I mean, sure, why not? In an apocalypse, you gotta use whatever you can find, even if you can barely carry it. What I really don't understand, though, is why they completely messed up how the weapon functions. This harpoon gun is supposed to be a muzzle loader, meaning you load the harpoon from the front end of the barrel. It's super simple, but the Fallout 4 harpoon gun goes out of its way to add in unnecessary modifications. Now it's got this weird, like, sliding door mechanism, which you use to load in the harpoons. And because of this new mechanism, the harpoons had to be downsized to fit in. Also, your character's hand phases right through the handle when reloading, and in general the animation just looks jagged and uncomfortable, which further proves how inconvenient this design would be. Overall, it just seems like a total downgrade, and I don't know why this design decision was made. The worst part, though, is the same problem that happened with the Broadsider. There's no propellant to actually launch the projectile. The harpoons just magically jump out of the barrel after pulling the trigger, and for some reason, it makes this big clanking sound. It's clear that not a whole lot of thought was put into this design, just like many of the other weapons in
Oop,
Fallout.
got a stone.
The devs took a perfectly functioning weapon and mucked it up for no reason. At this point, it seems they're going out of their way to make these weapons as non-functional and unimmersive as possible. It's almost insulting to our intelligence. And for that, I'll have to give the harpoon gun a whopping 0 out of 5 bottle caps. We're just on a big losing streak right now. I sure hope it gets better. Let's move on to the flavor. It's another big disappointment, and I could never bring myself
How could
to
you
use
carry
it.
that thing?
Its damage is pitiful, and the range is laughable too. You literally have to be standing right next to someone to hit them. Anything beyond 15 feet, and your focus is
Flamethrowers actually have some
Flamethrowers
range
do indeed have limited
to them.
range, but their maximum effective range would be closer to 50 feet, not 15. Even
Yeah.
when you are close enough, it's barely able to cook their meat to medium rare. You have to slow roast them for 8 hours like a crock pot if you want to deal any considerable damage. In reality, flamethrowers are absolutely terrifying. One quick burst is all it takes to send someone into a frenzied panic as they try desperately to extinguish their burning flesh. Anyway, you definitely don't want to be anywhere close to one. But in Fallout 4, you can use the flamer as a nice little hand warmer for your enemies. I think we can blame the poor performance on the fact that it's supposed to be a handmade weapon. One made by the Forged, I would assume. It looks like it's made out of spare parts they found in their factory, so I commend it for being resourceful, but still, it's not a very great weapon. By default, it uses regular fuel as ammunition, so I'm guessing that refers to gasoline? probably? If so, that explains why the range is so short, but you can upgrade to have a napalm tank. Although, that doesn't actually change what ammunition you load into the flamer. It just magically upgrades the damage is all. Even with that upgrade, the flamer is still not very good, and the flame it puts out is rather lame. This thing looks like a cigarette lighter in comparison to the chaotic fireball of a real flamethrower. It's just pathetic. But besides the poor performance, the overall design isn't too practical either. Unlike historical flamethrowers, this is an all-in-one package. The fuel tank on this one is huge, so you can bet that'll weigh you down when it's at full capacity. I mean, the fuel tanks should be this big, but real flamethrowers have the fuel tanks separated so they can be carried on the back, which helps alleviate a lot of unnecessary fatigue on the arms. Other than the weight, it takes up way too much space, and it looks like you'd be banging your legs up against the fuel tank when trying to run. An all-in-one flamethrower is a decent idea, but they have to be much smaller and lighter to be usable. If the devs really wanted a heavy flamer, then they should have just went with the traditional format. It would work great with power armor too. You'd be able to carry hundreds of pounds of fuel on your back, so you wouldn't run out so quickly. That's another thing though. The Fallout 4 flamer has a surprisingly large fuel capacity, especially if you upgrade it. You can hold down the trigger for like a minute straight, which is insanely efficient.
It is for a flamethrower. Remember, flamethrowers cost like 15 seconds.
The trade-off for that
What?
capacity is hold down the trigger for like a minute straight, which is insanely efficient when you consider that real flamethrowers with tanks this big only last a few seconds. The trade-off for that capacity is the low damage output. It may be a long-lasting flame, but it's not very hot. I'd much rather have it the other way around though. What's especially interesting about how the flamer works is that when you reload it, you only replace the small tank on top of the weapon.
Yeah, that's my
Your
question.
character doesn't touch the big tanks at the bottom. So, what are those being used for? Are they purely decorational? There must be something in there. The reload animation implies that the small tank is the one that holds the fuel, but you'd expect the bigger tanks to be the one that hold the fuel, while the small tank should be the one that holds all the pressurized gas. That part definitely got mixed up. Overall, the flamer is a huge, confusing mess, and it doesn't know what it wants to be. Yet again, I'll have to give this one 0 out of 5 bottle caps. Hopefully, we can find a weapon which deserves at least 1 bottle cap. Come on, it can't be that hard. Don't get your hopes up, because the minigun isn't any better. On the surface, it looks okay, but it's one of the worst designs in Fallout 4.
Avoiding athlete's foot? Prevent it with Lotrimin Daily Prevention, so you can go with confidence.
Reckless driving. Motorcycle awareness. Watch for motorcycles.
Oh my god.
You'd expect the minigun to be among the most overpowered guns in the whole game, but no, the devs have butchered this one. It has the lowest base damage in the entire game, and it's not very good at shredding enemies either.
No, it isn't.
The accuracy is absolutely abysmal. You have to use it in close quarters exclusively, or else you'll just be wasting all your ammo. Don't say it's for balance purposes, because it's extremely
Miniguns can shoot
underpowered.
long range on
That's
like
not
planes
very
and stuff.
balanced, if you ask me. The reason why the devs made this weapon so weak is because they wanted to make it an early game weapon, which you get at the Museum of
And it
Freedom.
sucks,
It was
man.
only put there to wow new players and give them an epic scripted fight with the Deathclaw to catch their attention right at the start of the game. To keep the player from being insanely overpowered at level 1, while still keeping the minigun and power armor set piece, the devs decided to neuter the minigun's damage profile. The only time it's ever useful is during that first quest, and after that, it quickly gets outperformed by anything else. It's simply, ammo is a pain to obtain too. It uses the special 5mm carbine that exists in Fallout. In New Vegas, it was used in the minigun and assault carbine, so I would assume it's similar to 5.56, but it's probably a little bit lighter with higher velocity because it has a special armor penetration effect. But all of that was thrown out when making Fallout 4. This time around, the 5mm looks to be similar in size to the 7.62 round, and it doesn't have any special penetration effect. So why not just go with the 7.62 then? At this point, there's no reason for the 5mm round to exist. And honestly, I think it should be retconned. The minigun should have been chambered in 7.62 from the start. You know, just like the real M134 minigun, which it's obviously based off of. That way, it'd be dealing a ton more damage, and it would be an absolute menace on the battlefield. Besides
Yeah.
just the ammo, the minigun also needs a way higher fire rate too. it's multitudes slower than its real-life counterpart. And I'm not sure what it is exactly, so if anyone wants to do the math, then let me know. But I know it's definitely not anywhere near the 6,000 rounds per minute that it should be at. The fire rate is slowed down even further thanks to its unnecessary spin-up delay. It's a common misconception seen in many video games, but miniguns don't actually take 2 whole seconds to spin up. They are powered by electric motors, which make the barrel spin at a constant rate. All it takes is one rotation, and due to its fast rotary speed, it fires basically instantly. I'm also not sure where the battery for this minigun would be at.
No,
Maybe it's somewhere inside the gun itself? It does look to be an all-in-one package. And I'm not going to rag on it just for being a handheld minigun. While that is
Oh my
also
God.
included in many video games, it makes sense for it to exist in Fallout because of power armor. What I don't like about this portable design, though, is the drum magazine. It's got the same issues that I mentioned about the flamer. That is, the drum will be banging up against your legs as you try to walk around. But of course, since this is a video game, your legs flip right through it like nothing happened. When reloading this magazine, you don't actually do anything to suggest you're reloading. In first person,
Yeah, I
you
know.
just shake the gun around a little bit and then continue firing. And in third person, you can see your character take out half of the drum and then place it right back in. It's definitely an interesting contraption because half of it is fixed into the gun itself. But I was expecting the whole thing to be detachable. It would have been so much easier to make the ammo belt feed from a backpack instead. And it's not like Bethesda doesn't know any better, because the minigun in Fallout 3 does come with an ammo backpack. They deliberately downgraded their design, and I don't see why. As the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But Bethesda's motto is, if it ain't broke, then I'm gonna break it. And they broke the minigun. It's so sad, truly. It could have been one of the best weapons in the entire game, but its performance is awful. The implementation is lame, and overall, the design is convoluted. Because of all that, I have no choice to give the minigun 0 out of 5 bottle caps. For another multi-barreled weapon, we've also got the Gatling laser. It's just like the minigun, but it's powered with fusion cores, so it shoots out laser beams. Curiously enough, it's named as a Gatling laser, but it functions more like the minigun. The Gatling gun is powered by a crank, which the user has to turn with the weapon to fire, but the Gatling laser shoots automatically, just like a minigun. I guess it should be called the mini laser then, but that doesn't sound right, so actually, I can see why they went with the Gatling laser instead. It just sounds better. Being a total fantasy weapon, I can't spend too much time examining its functionality, but funnily enough, it seems like it could be a more reasonable design than the regular minigun. The best advantage it has is the way it's loaded. All you have to do is plop in a small fusion core, and you've got 500 shots. But the downside is that you're using your precious fusion cores to power this thing. Is it worth it? Not really. The overall performance is similar to the regular minigun, but it's using ammunition that is far more valuable. It definitely needs a higher DPS to justify the cost, because it's only a feasible option in the late game when you have tons of fusion cores. But at that point, the damage output is barely average, so you might as well use anything else. Other than that, it still has many shared issues with the regular minigun, including a low fire rate,
I have to get a pump or
spin-up delay,
something.
and god-awful accuracy. Also, the overall look of the weapon could use an upgrade. It's much too blocky for my taste. It looks like a Minecraft weapon mod. It's pretty obvious that they took assets from the laser rifle and then slapped them on here. I also think it's odd that all the parts and wires are exposed to the elements. Seems like it would be prone to malfunction. And that doesn't seem very characteristic for a futuristic laser gun. I can only speculate so much, though.
Oops.
At the very least, the Gatling laser isn't quite as egregious as the other heavy weapons, but I still don't like it too much. I think it's about time I show an act of kindness. I rate the Gatling laser 1 out of 5 bottle caps. Great job, guys. We finally did
Uh-oh.
it. We finally found a weapon that deserves at least 1 bottle cap. Now I can rest easy. To finish things off, we have the Junk Jet. Since a lot of the weapons in this game are pure garbage and wouldn't function, you'd be better off throwing them at your opponent to deal blunt damage. This contraption is designed to eat any garbage and then throw it out at high velocity. So, like a railgun, but with any random object. I can appreciate the comedic relief, but at the same time, I've literally never used this weapon because it's too silly. Also, you've defeated your precious junk, and the last thing I want to do is throw away all my valuable crafting materials. To be fair, it wasn't made to be realistic at all, but I'm not going to spare it from a low rating because of that. It's a silly gimmick weapon that's not actually useful in combat. Putting this gun into the game was a waste of time and resources, and I'm willing to bet that 99% of players don't ever use it. I don't even want to spend time speculating on how it works. It's obviously meant as a joke, and it belongs in a dumpster. 0 out of 5 bottle caps. And finally, that wraps up everything wrong with the heavy weapons in Fallout 4. It was way longer than I expected. The more I studied the weapons, the more flaws I found. I still might have missed a few details though, so if there's anything else you can add, then please, let me know in the comments down below. I'm also interested to see what you'll have to say about the weapon designs in Fallout 4. What ratings would you give to each weapon, and how would you make them better? Feel free to have your own rants in the comments. I'm sure it'll be fun. Anyway, that's all I got for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. If you did, and you want to nuke that like button. I'm already working on the next Fallout gun rants, so if you want to be alerted when those come out, then make sure to subscribe and smack that bell icon to get notified. And with that, I'll see y'all in the next video. This rusty cheese grater looks like
Okay. This looks like a really decent area for flooding. Thank God I have the grand design for this. I'd rather die than use anything else. Okay. I need to lower this rope down. Okay, we need to get a pump. I know it's just one. I know it's weird. I'm making just one pump. Let's make 3. F it. Let's just make 5. Okay, now I just gotta go down there. Oh. Do I have a wait, do I already have a half-second timer? Yes. Even though this will overload the pumps, I don't care. I'm just gonna pump everything out. Oh, I wanna watch more of those most evil videos. I'm gonna watch those. YouTube's darkest shit. Oh yes, Nick Qualley. Yes, this guy. I should actually say his channel. Oops. I'm just swinging, hoping I don't get hurt. Most disturbing. Wait. The collapse of FPS Russia.
Keep in mind, don't try this at home. I am a professional Russian.
We're the sickest man. Actually, yeah, I wanted to watch this earlier.
Some people are calling one Tennessee Halloween attraction a post-torture chamber under heart attack.
I have been aware. I didn't realize how bad it truly was.
It could be a death wish. They say you could die.
McCamey Manor. What is this? I can't place pumps under lava.
So about a month ago, me and my girlfriend were looking for something to watch on Netflix. Well, we got recommended this little indie show. Doubt you've heard of it.
Squid Game.
Squid Game is not like anything else on television.
Taking the internet by storm in October 2021, Squid Game has captivated audiences with its pertinent allegories, lovable characters, and impeccable dubbing.
Oh, about that, Grandma. Why did you get kicked out?
Grandma? Don't you ever call me that!
I hate that one lady. I hate that lady. She's such a psycho.
Understand why these characters have no choice but to compete in a series of lethal games Mr. Beast is apparently working to recreate, which is horrifying. What if I told you signing over your physical rights in hopes of a generous cash prize is hardly anything of fiction? In fact, while watching it, I couldn't help but see the similarities between the depraved frontman and Russ McCamey, a peculiar figure with a reputation for carrying out sadistic haunts across the country and broadcasting all of it online. And with a $20,000 cash prize on the table, anything and everything goes. But is what appears to be another Halloween attraction decoration, just a thinly
I think there's a different person that actually used to trap people in his house, and they would make them, like, play games or something.
Hint, it's not that one. Join me as we document the infamous character of Russ McCamey and peel back the layers behind the real-life Squid Game McCamey Manor.
McCamey Manor promises an extreme experience. A Change.org petition to shut down McCamey Manor.
That's all he's trying to do is hurt people.
Police arrived and found a woman shivering, beaten, and duct taped in a cellar.
I do this because the fans like it and because it's entertaining to me.
So I want to start this off with a few notes. One, a massive trigger warning for sensitive references to physical and mental abuse. And two, McCamey Manor isn't your standard haunted house. As opposed to simply meandering your way through a sweaty, dark hallway while Ellen DeGeneres makes fun of you in front of a crowd of wine mobs, McCamey Manor cranks the fear factor up to 100. Times 100. This place has been described as a kingdom of masochists, where guests more or less willingly sign their autonomy away in exchange for being bound, gagged, kidnapped, beaten, frozen, taunted, waterboarded, and more without a safe word.
Oh my god.
The attraction has since been vehemently condemned by former employees,
An attraction?
contestants, and the government, which I guess is a trend with these videos now. But I understand that's a lot to digest at once, okay? I get it. Let's take a quick pause, get a drink of water. We haven't seen anything yet, okay? Trust me. To really get the full picture, we're gonna need to dig a little deeper into the man behind the madness, Russ McCamey, a local wedding DJ from San Diego who loves his country, dogs, and especially...
It's all over for you, okay?
This guy's literally Saw.
But it wasn't always this way.
I'm Danielle Harris, riding Route 666 to America's Scariest Home Haunts. All home-based haunted houses. Check it out.
See, Russ has always had a knack for entertaining. As he constantly emphasizes, it's all entertainment.
That's me, man. Just an entertainer. That's all
Oh boy.
That's right. Locking
It's about to get bad.
And mocking them on camera is fun to watch, I guess. Yeah, that's a lot of people. Being a self-described showman at heart, Russ developed a particular interest in horror when he was just a child, going trick-or-treating with his dad and getting a real kick out of various creepy decorations people would set up in their yards. It was from that moment Russ knew what he wanted to do, setting up little makeshift haunted houses in his parents' garage as a kid, eventually became... Even throughout his 23 years in the Navy, Russ always had a soft spot in his heart for bringing people's worst fears to life.
I jumped in the Navy for 23 years, and I was doing haunts even out to sea. It didn't matter where I was. I was doing them on the ships for the guys, so it didn't matter.
Upon leaving the military, Russ claimed